In this video, I will be talking about 10 myths about addiction and substance use disorder. The first myth is that all people who use drugs are addicted. This is a myth because plenty of people use substances but are not physiologically addicted to the substance. The second myth is that people addicted to drugs use drugs to get high. Now, this is a myth because when people start using drugs, they experience euphoria and a surge in pleasure. But after those first several times of using the substance, they don't experience the same surge. This is because dopamine receptor availability decreases and because the brain has too much dopamine, and then the person begins to feel less pleasure overall. And so there's sort of a cap on which they can experience subsequent pleasure. So most people who use drugs are using drugs because they feel sick when they do not use. So most people who use drugs to stave off withdrawal symptoms, which include things like vomiting, sweatiness, intense pain, and most notably, very intense depression and anxiety. The third myth is people who use drugs can quit whenever they want. This is a myth because addiction is a physiological condition, it's a medical condition, and it's very difficult to stop having a substance use disorder because it affects the regions of the brain where our sort of will to live and our will to survive lives. This is a very difficult condition to treat. The fourth myth is people need to hit rock bottom to get treatment. Now, for most people, rock bottom is pretty low, and for some, rock bottom is death. So we do not want people to hit rock bottom before they get treatment. People can seek treatment at any time. They can obtain treatment at any time. They don't need to even want treatment for it to work. The fifth myth is that people need to want treatment for it to work. That was a nice segue there. So people who are not motivated to seek treatment, that's okay. It's the clinician's job to help them see how being substance use free or decreasing their substance use and trying moderation can positively impact their life. So for some people, this looks like they come in, their spouse is really upset, or the court is very upset because they keep testing positive for alcohol or fentanyl or methamphetamines, and helping them see the parts of their life that are negatively impacted by these substances. The sixth myth is interventions are the best method to get people into treatment. Now, I know that interventions have been popularized on certain TV shows, but these are actually not that effective, and interventions are associated with an increased risk of overdose. And this is because when people are told by their family members in a surprising way, in a surprise gathering, that they will be essentially stepping out of their lives if they do not stop using substances, it makes them feel abandoned, and it makes them feel like their social support isn't there, which then increases their substance use and creates a break of trust. The seventh myth is treatment should only need to happen once. Now, in many courts, what we see is that someone has gone to a 30-day rehab or they're in a therapy with a clinician who meets with them once a week, and people are asking, why are they still using? Well, for most people, to obtain 1 year of sobriety, on average, it takes 8 years and 4 to 5 iterations of treatment. So you should expect that there's going to be multiple residential treatment iterations and multiple treatment failures before someone enters into sustained sobriety. The eighth myth is people who are addicted to drugs are bad, weak people. Relapse or returns to use are a personal moral failure. They're just not trying hard enough. This is a myth because a lot of people who have addiction are trying very hard. And every minute, every hour that they're not using is a struggle because they're experiencing very severe cravings. And so when we set the standard at sobriety as the only metric of success, that leads a lot of people to fail. So in my clinical practice, it's really common for people who are highly engaged in treatment to be sober, and then every few months they may have a setback where they drink or use drugs for 1 to 5 days. And clinically, in addiction medicine, that is considered a success. So when we set the metric of success at sobriety, a lot of people fail. And when we set this up as a moral failure, a lot of people feel really awful about themselves for the medical condition that they didn't choose. The ninth myth is that a person must have insight into their substance use problem to make progress. Now, the same region of the brain where insight lives is affected by substance use disorder. So it is no surprise that people who have a substance use disorder lack insight. And this isn't something that I get into battles with my clients about, and it usually improves over time as they enter into recovery. The 10th myth is that all returns to use or relapses are the same. And what we know is that it matters whether the return to use was a couple hours over the span of a day or a return to use that was lasting for 6 weeks. And we don't want to treat all returns to use as the same. So these are 10 myths about substance use disorder to help you in your cases involving people with substance use.